Now the questions. Which genus A or B represents Australopithecus?
Now, what would you say?
So,
A or B?
let's see. You mentioned there's only genus A or genus B. Which one is Australopithecus?
Well, we don't have much time.
Yeah.
Our learners are still thinking. What would the answer be?
I just want to give you the answer there. It's B, of course. And because we know here that it is, you can see that.
Well done, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 million years. You must also know. You see why now you have to know which genuses lived which time. And had a more prognathous skull. It's also B, had smaller canines, because here we go, and you can see it's much younger to the Homo species, and there it is. Also A is more closely related to Homo sapiens. And two examples of fossils of genus B, Australopithecus, found at Site 1 in South Africa. It's a lot of information in one question, and you can name anything of Mrs. Bless, the Town Child, Littlefoot, Karabu, or you can give them all their scientific names,
Yes.
Australopithecus africanus, but then you must know it includes both. You can't then mention Australopithecus africanus and then the Town Child, because the tongue child belongs to Australopithecus africanus. Right, we are now running through it because we are really now have very few time left here, little time left. So the youngest fossils determined 3 million years is much older than 1.25 million years. So it's easy to determine. And then besides fossils, the other evidence that we use for the out of Africa hypothesis is the use of mitochondrial DNA, which is then prescribed in your guideline document.
Yeah, so it's mitochondrial evidence and DNA evidence, in other words, and then cultural evidence, making tools, rock paintings, etc. Yes, and there we've got them.
Here we have the genus Homo, lived between about 2.2 million years ago. We have this different species, Habilis erectus, Neanderthalensis, that was found out of Africa as well as Erectus. And there we see that Homo erectus actually outcompeted Homo habilis, and they lived on, and they were the ones that started moving out of Africa. Because how do we know that? Because of the fossils that we have found outside of Africa, and these were the first of the fossils that we have found out of Africa's continent on other continents, and that is and proves and gives us evidence that man originated on the African continent.
Yeah. We know that Neanderthalensis lived at the same time as Erectus in Europe. We outcompeted them, and so today we have Homo sapiens. Right, and Homo sapiens, yes, Colin, that's us.
Yeah, that's us. And we actually more of this, you must remember, they appeared about 200,000 years ago, the Homo sapiens. And today we are the Homo sapiens, more developed. And but what is important is that all modern humans originated in Africa. And it shows us that the oldest fossils of Homo habilis and Homo erectus are found only in Africa. And the younger ones is found also in other parts, and that implies that the earliest Homo species evolved in Africa. Now, Lorraine, the question is, what today, this is now the out of Africa hypothesis, and because of the evidence, fossil evidence, what would you, grade 12 learners, say if any fossil older than these ones should be found on another continent? What would it do to our out of Africa hypothesis?
Remember we said that Lucy, which was an ancestor 3 million years ago, that her fossil was found in Africa, in the Afar region. What if we find a fossil, exactly the same structure as Lucy, 3 to 4 million years ago in China? That would mean that the oldest fossils are not found in Africa, that we probably did not originate from Africa. and that the out of Africa hypothesis is not supported by evidence. So far, however, we know that the evidence points to the fact that we did originate in Africa.
Yeah, and that is very important. So remember there you say that they say you create a new hypothesis. Jeffrey, first of all, what do you do with the existing hypothesis? Then that means that our existing hypothesis would be totally and completely rejected. And then only we need to create a new one to show that, or not only create a new one, but then we have to look for more evidence. Because, there are many hoaxes taking place.
Yeah.
So we need to be very careful and that is why scientists, they take a very, very long time when they study these fossils. Over years sometimes, because they need to verify the facts that if one is found somewhere, there might be more. And if they can't find it, then of course we must still go and continue with our current hypothesis. And up to date we can tell you that the oldest fossils were found in Africa so far. There's no other older.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it's still called an hypothesis. But I think we are at the point where there's enough evidence to point to the fact that it can become a theory, in other words, supported by enough evidence. And researchers are doing genetic testing of people all over the world, also pointing to the out of Africa hypothesis. Just one thing, there's a question here about where you can find the telematics books, because I think it can be quite confusing, all these terms and dates and fossil names that we've used. Your teacher can contact your curriculum advisor, and he or she should provide the school with copies.
Yeah, and I think if we go back to our last slide here, look how beautifully the Taung Chart fits into the framework of the African continent. And it says, so was Darwin right? Is Africa the home of humanity? Definitely. So far, with all evidence pointing out that Africa is the home of humanity and where humans originated from.
And Colin, some people say, and I have to say this, that they don't want man coming from Africa. Even some of our fellow South Africans say that, because it means that people from Africa are stupid. Now, if you think that, you don't understand the hypothesis. The hypothesis means that human ancestors started off in Africa, and it's something to be proud of. Africa is the home of humankind, specifically Southern Africa and specifically South Africa, one of the richest countries in fossils, and we can contribute greatly to the knowledge of the world on human origins.
Yeah, and I think this has brought us to the end of this presentation, and I think we see them one more time before we say goodbye for the year.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the year is running out.
So please take books and study hard, and thank you for logging on and listening to us.
Goodbye.